Madras High Court has given the go-ahead for the meeting to take place. Pictures on your screen are coming to you from outside the party's headquarters, where clashes are being reported, and not just outside the party headquarters. We have been hearing of heated arguments and tempers essentially going out of hand between supporters of EPS and OPS. Now, the AIADMK currently has a dual leadership formula, but we have been seeing EPS wanting to move towards single leadership. He wants to be appointed as the General Secretary of the party awaiting elections. But things not looking too good right now. Those visuals are of the violence that's taking place. Now, do remember... All right. So these are pictures that we are getting to you now from outside the party headquarters. This meeting is set to begin any time now. In fact, it must have begun. It's already 9:17, so it was supposed to begin at 9:15. The Madras High Court has given the go-ahead for the meeting to take place. This essentially is a meeting for the control of the future of the AIADMK, which becomes extremely important because it is the key opposition party in Madras. So in that sense, this meeting also will hold a lot of importance in politics in Tamil Nadu. Now, what we are seeing, of course, is that EPS is going to, perhaps EPS's faction is going to move for OPS to be removed as the treasurer. And thereafter, we are also hearing that OPS is likely to skip the meeting and is holding discussions at the moment with his supporters. But things taking an ugly turn outside the party's headquarters as clashes have been reported since this morning. Now, earlier, of course, we saw a large number of supporters of both camps essentially going to the headquarters to gather support for both the sides. But right now, things not looking too good. I think we've got Niranjan still. All right, we don't have him right now on the phone line. But just to tell our viewers about where this event is going to take place. Now, as everything in Tamil Nadu's politics, this is going to be huge, and large open area on the premises of the headquarters has been erected. All right, so those are pictures of those supporters of either side which are now going in. Now, I was just telling you about how this is going to essentially play out. Now, a large open area on the premises of the AIADMK headquarters has been tin-footed. It's been tin-roofed to host the event. It can accommodate about 3,000 functionaries. There's been a dais that's been set up. So all the works have been done to essentially appoint an interim general secretary. It's also the battle for J. Jayalalitha's legacy. Now, the bitter fight we've seen between EPS and OPS has gone back a long time, but they did unite briefly for a brief period of time to essentially expel Sasikala when she was sent to jail. So that unity has come in, but perhaps now the bitter rivalry between the two is at its peak, and what we are expecting is some sort of a showdown between supporters, which has already taken place. All right, so supporters, of course, continuing to move into the AIADMK's party headquarters right now. We are not very sure at the moment whether OPS will attend the meeting, because it seemed he was the one who was opposing this meeting. He'd gone and approached the Madras High Court against it. So in that sense, we are not expecting, perhaps we're still waiting confirmation as to whether he will go there or not. But right now, what you see on your screens is playing out in Chennai, as supporters of both EPS and OPS have taken to the streets, and it's been quite a heated exchange. They've come to blows outside the party headquarters. What happens inside, of course, will also, in a sense, tell us how the party is going to move forward now. Do remember that, of course, OPS has been opposed to this meeting. I think I've got Vikraman. Mr. Vikraman now joins me on the phone line. Mr. Vikraman, good morning. How do you see what's playing out on the streets outside the AIADMK's headquarters? Now, this, of course, is a pitched battle that's taking place between supporters as well.
Yeah, good morning. And the AIADMK is seeing a very dirty internal politics now, because it has never seen such a politics before. And as you rightly pointed out, the two forces of Mr. Party and Mr. EPS separately calling themselves the leaders all that. The last meeting, if you could remember, the meeting was full of challenge and the OPS has been wrongly insulted in that meeting. And now the meeting is happening after that dirty episode. The party is actually suffering from a leadership crisis. As far as the Tamil Nadu people is concerned, AIADMK had a strong leader in Mr. Elilita and Mr. MGR. But now it is suffering from a leadership crisis, and it will be good if there is a double leadership instead of dual leadership instead of a single leadership. Because the party is a mass party. It is not like DMK or our medical equipment, which is order-based or which is driven by principles. It is actually a mass party,
right,
headed by some matinee idol. So it will be difficult to find a leadership. So it is better that they have the dual leadership.
All right, so that's the view that's coming in. Thank you for joining us on the phone line. Now, what we understand is that the meeting is supposed to begin shortly. Now, pictures that you see on your screen are coming to you from inside that meetings that has now begun. Now, since last month, of course, the AIADMK has been witnessing serious intra-party wrangling over the issue of single leadership. Palaniswamy, of course, has the support of an overwhelming majority, and Paneerselvam has been sidelined largely in the party. Now, it is expected that the AIADMK may soon act against Paneerselvam. As we were earlier talking, it is very, very likely that he could be removed from the post of treasurer. And now, this particular meeting, of course, is historic in the sense that it has gone ahead after the Madras High Court ruled that this meeting could go ahead. Now, it is likely that the General Council and the Executive Committee will today elect Palaniswamy as the single supreme leader of the party, and perhaps this will mark, in a sense, the sidelining of O. Paneerselvam, who will clearly be relegated to the sidelines of the party now. We will have to wait and watch, in fact, how he reacts to this. It is very likely that he will not be there for that meeting. We're going to try and go across to our correspondents on the ground in just a bit to give us a sense of what's happening inside the meeting. But pictures on your screen are also from outside the headquarters, and we've been seeing these clashes broke out between supporters of EPS and OPS. It is likely also that what happens today will, in a sense, vertically split the party between support for EPS and OPS. Do remember, both of them are stalwarts of the party, and both were equally trusted by J. Jayalalitha. But obviously there is more support on the ground, perhaps for EPS, and that's why he's been able to gather support of his party cadres and reach where he's reached today, being likely to be appointed the interim general secretary of the party. But nevertheless, it will also divide the party vertically. We'll have to wait and watch for how OPS really reacts to this. But pictures on your screen are of what's taking place outside the party's headquarters. There are clashes taking place all over, and it has come to a head today because there was a lot of agitation that came in from OPS's side for the meeting that is taking place even as we speak. Now, it's going to be a grand meeting. About 3,000 functionaries of the AIADMK ground workers as well as office bearers are attending that meeting that is taking place. It will also perhaps tell us the direction that the AIADMK will take henceforth. It has taken a while for the AIADMK to essentially come out of J. Jayalalitha's legacy, because she was the grandest leader that the party perhaps saw in those terms. So what we are seeing is a battle also for her legacy. We're going to try and connect to our correspondents on the ground to tell us what's happening right now, even as we speak. The meeting, of course, has begun. We were earlier showing you visuals from inside. Now, as everything that happens in Tamil Nadu politics, of course, there has been a grand stage that's been put up for this meeting. Those are visuals that we were just playing those out for you of what's happening inside that stage. It's supposed to house a large number of the cadre of the AIADMK. About 3,000 workers and party functionaries are going to be attending that meeting. So pictures on your screen are of what's happening outside right now. The High Court, of course, to remember, has dismissed the plea to not allow for that meeting to take place. So that meeting is taking place even as we speak. But things outside aren't looking too good for the AIADMK. Clashes have erupted, and we've been seeing some amount of friction between the two sides in the run-up to this meeting for over a month now. Do remember that when the last meeting took place, there was a walkout that was staged by the OPS faction, and we still don't know right now. We're trying to get in touch with our correspondents to understand whether OPS is attending this meeting at all or not. But what's also likely to take place, perhaps, is action being taken against OPS. He's the treasurer of the party. He's also the co-chair in that sense. So we'll have to wait and watch out for whether a resolution is passed by the party in terms of action being taken against him. But currently, of course, this is the party's historic General Council and Executive Committee that is meeting today. It is likely to elect Palaniswamy as the single supreme leader of the party, and we are also perhaps going to see O. Paneerselvam essentially relegated to the background. Now, this meeting, of course, comes after the Madras High Court had pronounced its verdict rejecting a plea by O. Paneerselvam to stall the meeting, which proposed to revise the interim General Secretary's post and abolish coordinator as well as the joint coordinator posts in this scenario. So this is something obviously that's not going to go down too well with the party's cadres, and that's what we are seeing in a sense take place outside the venue for this meeting. Now, tensions have been raised for quite some time between the two factions. In fact, the last meeting wasn't pleasant either. But today, of course, it's come to a head with clashes breaking out outside the headquarters. There's been stone pelting. Both sides have burnt effigies and banners of each other. And as we've been talking, of course, since last month, the AIADMK has been witnessing serious intra-party wrangling over the issue of single leadership. Right now, there is a dual leadership system that is in place, and that is something that EPS has been wanting to get rid of. He wants to get himself appointed as the interim General Secretary. Palaniswamy, of course, has the support of an overwhelming majority, and Paneerselvam has been sidelined largely in the party. But it's unlikely that he will go down without a fight. All right, just to tell our viewers that the Madras High Court on Friday had said that it would press, it would allow right now, Madras High Court, of course, has allowed for this meeting to take place, but things not looking good at all. You are seeing these protests and there's been stone pelting, there's been burning of effigies that are taking place outside the AIADMK's party headquarters. Now, let's also tell our viewers what's happening inside. Now, this is a crucial meeting that is taking place inside the headquarters of the AIADMK. It essentially has, this meeting is taking place to make sure that there is a proposal to revive the interim General Secretary's post and abolish the coordinator as well as the joint coordinator post. Now, so far, of course, ever since the demise of J. Jayalalitha, we have seen a two-man leadership of O. Paneerselvam and EPS, both of them, of course, heading the party jointly. But for a while now, there's been push from the cadres as well that it has to be a single person at the top. So EPS seems to be seizing that power right now. What we are told is that inside the meeting is taking place. Now, Rukma is joining us as well. Rukma, as you can see on these screens, the protests, of course, have taken quite an ugly turn right now. We are witnessing these posters being burnt, supporters coming to blows, essentially.
Right. And in fact, news reports suggest that, the violence began even before the High Court order Nupur taking over right now. The AIADMK General Council likely to meet and elect Payanisamy as the single Supreme Party leader. And it's a big setback for the O Selvam camp. It's a setback to the OPS camp, as we are saying. The High Court giving the order. Abhishek on the phone. Abhishek, take us through the significance of this High Court verdict as far as the two camps are concerned, the High Court allowing the General Council meet.
Well, Rukma, this is essentially about Edapadi Palaniswamy effectively and finally taking control of the ADMK. Remember the tug of war between the OPS and the EPS faction. EPS is O Selvam, of course, has been going on for a couple of years now. In fact, since after the 2019 defeat of the party. And remember, the two had come together to throw out Sasikala. Now with EPS effectively taking over in today's General Council meeting as Interim General Secretary. Incidentally, a post which was abolished because they wanted to get Sasikala out of the party and the system forever. And in fact, EPS and OPS had collaborated on that. And now it seems that once Sasikala and the entire Sasikala clan is out, EPS wants to come back as General Secretary, and that's the significance effectively of this meeting. Though of course there might be consequences in terms of faction wars surfacing and going on, and OPS doing something in retaliation. But what we have seen is that there was a party executive committee meeting which amended the bylaws sometime in December, after which OPS was made the coordinator and EPS the joint coordinator. But it seems that it's the EPS faction which has complete control over the party apparatus. So, for example, 70 out of the 75 district secretaries and 63 out of the 66 MLAs of the party, they belong to the EPS faction, and that's, I think, getting reflected in the developments of the past couple of months, where increasingly we have seen EPS faction really prevailing upon the direction the party is taking. So, for example, even this meeting that is to take place today and to discuss the demand of almost 2,000 plus members of the General Council, OPS is really fighting it out in the courts because he could not muster the enough numbers to set the agenda. If, for example, someone from the EPS section wanted to become the presiding officer or presiding chairman of this meeting that is to take place today, and I think that's the significance with the court announcing and the EPS faction really getting sway, essentially because they have numbers in the organizational structure, clearly shows that finally the leadership tussle has a direction, and which is towards EPS. The OPS faction obviously would in some ways respond. We have seen how during the lifetime of Vijay Mallya, thrice that she relinquished the post of Chief Minister, it was O Selvam who was made acting Chief Minister because possibly he was trusted more. Subsequently, we saw, of course, post Jayalalitha, how EPS and OPS fell out, and EPS became the Sasikala faction because Sasikala favored him more. Though, of course, initially, if you look at it, both in the rise of OPS from a tea seller, a tea shop owner in southern Tamil Nadu, and EPS also coming in, both kind of got into the close circle of Jayalalitha because of getting along well with Sasikala at some stage. Though of course OPS fell out a little earlier. Subsequently, even EPS, because once he became Chief Minister, he really wanted to exercise his authority. That's how the two came together and really got Sasikala out of the system, and that's how OPS became the coordinator and EPS became the joint coordinator by abolishing the post of General Secretary. Now, in today's meeting, which is now approved by the topmost court of the country, with EPS faction really holding sway over most of the party operators, it's likely that you will see, for now at least, the leadership issue of ADMK getting sorted. It's still early. There is no election as of now. And essentially what we are going to see is, after a brief hiatus perhaps, faction wars is still breaking out between the groups. One, of course, more powerful now, the EPS one, the other OPS. And you could see even more fracture within the ADMK, unfortunately, given the fact that there is no central pole, there is no one strong leader. And so I think the Madras High Court verdict willy-nilly makes it advantage DMK so far as Tamil Nadu politics is concerned.
Right, it's fascinating, Abhishek, the way politics plays out down south. Well, EPS, as you just said, enjoyed and continues to enjoy the support of nearly 76%, as you just mentioned in those figures. Overwhelming support from party workers. OPS, meanwhile, used to be seen as the political heir of late party chief Jayalalitha. What does this mean as far as OPS's career is concerned, both within the party and outside?
Well, Rukma, I would say he will have to really fight it out now. Remember, once the two came together to throw out Sasikala and the clan, including her nephew TDB Dinakaran, who at one point of time really effectively controlled entire machinery of ADMK. And subsequent to the decision in December, party executive committee that OPS would be the coordinator, EPS would be the joint coordinator. It seems the EPS faction realizing that on the ground, actually they have the numbers. And the entire machinery is controlled by men of EPS. And this could have happened, during the period when EPS was actually the chief minister. It's possible that he succeeded in putting in his own men in the district committees and as district secretaries. So as of now, for example, out of 75, 70 belong to the EPS faction. Almost 100%, 63 out of 66 MLAs, if they belong to the EPS faction. I think they must have realized that why keep dual leadership, and that's why demand was increasingly gaining ground that it should be a single leadership, and that this joint leadership of a coordinator and a joint coordinator is creating hassles. And that's when the turf war really started with the EPS faction, in fact, taking the lead in going to the courts. And in the month of June, June 23 to be precise, I believe, that a decision was passed and a meeting at the party headquarters, in fact, on June 14, the decision was passed that the DMK leadership should be with the EPS camp. Now, this was challenged by the OPS group in the courts. Some restraining order obtained at the lower level. And it seemed that for now, at that time, in the month of June at least, that OPS would continue to remain the general, to remain the coordinator. But now with the Madras High Court verdict today, the gates opening for General Council of over 2,000 members. And this is a body which has a majority of EPS group leaders. So obviously, there is a challenge to OPS, and it's likely that his career might see some ups and downs, whether he would break away and set up his own group. Again, remember, earlier he had set up the ADMK Purachit Halaivi Amma, like OPS had set up his ADMK Amma. It's only when the two came together and merged to kick out Sasikala. Now again, they might go their own way. Now, whether this makes, Sasikala relevant in any manner, whether she comes back, whether this time OPS goes to her, so we don't know. So those dynamics would really play out. As I said, irrespective, this is going to be advantage DMK because this internecine conflict within the ADMK, this faction war, and possibility of more factions emerging and breakaway groups emerging. I think this is going to only make the Tamil Nadu politics more in favor of DMK, which is at least under Stalin shows a measure of stability insofar as the leadership question is concerned. So till the time these various factions of the ADMK, at least for now, the EPS, which gains more currency within the ADMK, then OPS, who might take a precipitate action, we don't know.
Actually reminds us of a very old proverb. Abhishek, and even as we are showing you in those visuals how that entire drama played out and continues to play out, our senior executive editor Abhishek takes us through the significance of this High Court verdict, the High Court rejecting OPS plea to stay AIADMK General Council meet.
Getting a cab these days is nearly impossible because half the time you don't get rides. Even if your cab gets booked, you're not sure when it is going to get cancelled or how much you're going to pay. Now, answering all this, Mind has come up with beautiful solutions whereby we don't have a surge rate here because they go by government prescribed rates. Not just that, Mind has a beautiful feature where you incentivize the driver, ensuring that he will come and pick you up on time. So, thanks Mind.
Prime Minister has posited a picture of Ma Kali, which is source of India's spiritual energy, which is a unifying factor.
माँ काली का यही चेतना बंगाल और पूरे भारत की आस्था में है। माँ काली का वो असीम आशीर्वाद हमेशा भारत के साथ।
Because of the government intervention in the space sector is very evident. They want to make a great reforms in space sector. So primarily the space agency has been the only ISRO so far. So they want a private entity to come in, not only to as a supplier of space items, but more into building rockets, satellites and applications on their own and own it and operate it. So for that the government is asking to prepare a policy which we have prepared. So a space policy 2022 is already prepared, in which we allow space private entities to own and operate satellites. This is a very big change. All satellites of India are currently owned only by ISRO. And every television broadcasting channels are provided only through ISRO. This is going to change. So it's not only the communication side, it's also going to change the remote sensing side. No, imaging satellites are owned only by ISRO and defense only. Now private entities can own imaging satellites. They can take photograph, images. They can use value-added products and also market.
Maharashtra continues to face heavy rains in several areas. The district of Gadchiroli is reeling from a flood-like situation due to heavy downpour. Several roads have been submerged underwater due to the incessant and heavy rains in the region. The water has entered the houses in Gadchiroli as people in the district are suffering from this calamity. The India Meteorological Department issued an orange alert for the Gadchiroli district, predicting heavy to very heavy showers accompanied by thunderstorms with lightning. Heavy rains have been reported in Maharashtra's Nanded in the last 24 hours, causing flood-like situations in several places in the district. Several parts of Maharashtra, including Mumbai, Thane, Palghar, Raigad, Ratnagiri, Pune, have been experiencing heavy downpours. 27 NDRF teams have been deployed across the state amid the heavy rainfall and a red alert issued by IMD. Bureau Report, Republic TV. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has agreed to resign on July 13, according to the Speaker of Parliament. This comes after thousands of protesters furious over his government's inability to address
Welcome back. You're watching Live and Breaking on Republic TV. Breaking news. The Madras High Court allows the AIADMK to conduct its General Council meeting. It's being seen as a major setback for the OPS camp. O. Paneerselvam, once regarded as the political heir to later party chief J. Jayalalitha, suffers a major setback even as clashes break out even before the High Court gave its verdict outside the party offices. Meanwhile, the High Court has okayed the General Council meet. In fact, it's being seen as paving the way for the party to have a single supreme leader. And that leader, most probably, would be E. Panisamy, who enjoys the support of most party workers. And going back once again to Abhishek. Abhishek, when reports suggest that the meeting venue itself told a story, there were no pictures there of O. Paneerselvam. Clearly, could he have misread the signs somewhat that he still had a chance? Also, what are the options open before him now?
Well, going by the court order, it is clear that OPS might not get much of a reprieve even if he takes subsequent legal action, Rukma. So obviously, as things stand, he will have to create his own parallel. So along expected lines, in fact, breaking news coming in, Rukma, that along expected lines, E. Palaniswamy has been elected as the interim general secretary of the ADMK, or as or now EPS faction, because obviously the OPS group would respond. The fact that they have been completely sidelined, that they have no voice, that a majority of appointees of the EPS have taken a lead, in fact, as a build-up to this meeting. And this has happened because despite an election of party executive committee, after the party executive committee changed the bylaws and appointed or elected the two leaders, EPS and OPS, as coordinator and joint coordinator, and this was by primary members of the party, remember. So obviously, while this council is of restricted 2,000 members, the primary members of the party are huge in number. OPS might say that this is hijacking of the ADMK by the EPS group, given the fact that while he was elected coordinator by the primary members of the party, which is a larger pool and a larger voter base, the General Council electing EPS as the ADMK leader or interim general secretary. All right, we have on phone, if I can be told who exactly is joining us over the phone. Okay, Royden is joining us over the phone. Political analyst Royden Roach, in fact, is joining us over the phone. Royden, if you can tell us the significance of this development, EPS effectively becoming the leader of ADMK, what options now with OPS group so far as his leadership is concerned? Is he out of the ADMK or is he going to do something about it?
See, we've seen many incidents happening after the death of Jayalalitha. And what we look at it now, the present situation is that I think the leaders have to come together. If they don't come together and they don't continue to be together, then I don't think the party will even exist in Tamil Nadu anymore. We already have seen DMK take over, and we have seen the current results of the state. And even now, if they keep continuing like this, I don't think the party will even stand a chance. So I think they have to go together. And what the present instance happening, the violence happening over there has to be controlled. And people, the so-called leader itself of the party, both the leaders itself, should be held responsible for such vandalization of public property. So this is what we have to see here, of them, how they have to come together.
There is still likelihood of them coming together. Most of the developments, in fact, suggest that OPS might go his own way.
Yeah, but if he goes his own way, what is the level of cadre he has? He doesn't have much of cadre. We have seen it in the past. So only to compromise things, and the involvement of BJP was amazing that they have changed the leadership earlier. But if you look at it very seriously, it is after the death of Jayalalitha, you've seen the thing, because the involvement of BJP. BJP tried to enter from the third door, but they didn't succeed in it. They wanted to play a completely different role. So I don't think I think sensibly enough, I think now they will come together, and I think they're going to be working under the EPS as the leader. That's what we have to wait and watch now. What could happen?
Right.
But in case you think
You are
of
suggesting
going
that
apart,
there is no possibility of Sasikala again becoming relevant.
no, I don't think. Shashikala is quite far away from all this because I don't think even the people are not going to accept her. So see, there are a lot of things which came to light after the death of Jayalalitha about Shashikala. So I don't think people are going to accept her. It's going to be a disaster for them. You may try to open Shashikala.
Right, but the possibility of OPS group, not compromising and making it an ego issue and then perhaps going to Sasikala, is that likely?
I don't see something of that coming up. I don't see something of that coming up at the moment.
So effectively,
even when she went to jail, there was a difference between both the groups. Okay, so I don't think that they will even approach her at this moment.
so effectively what you are suggesting is that irrespective of how the OPS group might feel, Royden, the OPS himself does not have many options but to compromise with EPS, and like he became coordinator and the EPS was joint coordinator, maybe he can accept some role working under the EPS now.
Yeah, that's what we have to look at. That's what they have to do. Because see, if they want to be sensible and continue, with the party, okay, to grow the strength of the party, they have to be together. But I don't see it coming. And even you can see the present situation where DMK is functioning, they are doing a perfect, excellent job over there. So I don't see even them coming, AIADMK, even if they come together, coming close to anyway, touching, causing a damage to DMK. So they have to come together if they want to look at it for future.
Yeah, also, Royden, the reason, in fact, why the General Secretary post was abolished in December was because EPS and OPS had to work together. Now, with the abolition of the Secretary and the Coordinator and the Joint Coordinator system and bringing back out the General Secretary post, EPS is sending across a straight away message that he is the boss of the ADMK. Take it or leave it. It is for OPS to now decide whether he wants to continue in some capacity as subordinate to EPS, and given the fact that he was someone who was Chief Minister thrice when J. Jayalalitha had to relinquish the post, and the fact that General Secretary's post for the longest time was occupied by, it's a powerful post and was occupied by J. Jayalalitha, I think, except for what you're suggesting that OPS has no other option, would it be easy for him to really accept that he has been outmaneuvered, he has been outclassed, and in the game of or tussle of leadership, EPS has absolutely sidelined OPS now?
See, it's not about them sidelining each other. What we have to look at, the reason why we have to avoid the post is, so see, you cannot have two masters together. You cannot serve two masters together. Even the channel is going to be affected. So you always have to have a single master, single head. A body cannot have two heads. It has to have one head only to function properly. So,
right. Giving this perspective, so the battle between two groups of OPS and EPS finally getting settled in favor of EPS post the Madras High Court verdict. Let's see how it pans out from here.
QS and THE, the world's foremost university rankings organizations, have ranked Amity amongst the top 3% universities globally, making it among the very few Indian universities to be included in both rankings. Yet another top ranking for Amity University.
Maharashtra continues to face heavy rains in several areas. The district of Gadchiroli is reeling from a flood-like situation due to heavy downpour. Several roads have been submerged underwater due to the incessant and heavy rains in the region. The water has entered the houses in Gadchiroli as people in the district are suffering from this calamity. The India Meteorological Department issued an orange alert for the Gadchiroli district, predicting heavy to very heavy showers accompanied by thunderstorms with lightning. Heavy rains have been reported in Maharashtra's Nanded in the last 24 hours, causing flood-like situations in several places in the district. Several parts of Maharashtra, including Mumbai, Thane, Palghar, Raigad, Ratnagiri, Pune, have been experiencing heavy downpours. 27 NDRF teams have been deployed across the state amid the heavy rainfall and a red alert issued by IMD. Bureau Report, Republic TV. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has agreed.
You're watching Live and Breaking on Republic TV, and in news that's just breaking, the Madras High Court allowing the AIADMK to conduct its General Council meeting, and E. Swamy officially takes over as the Interim General Secretary. The High Court order paving the way for single supreme leadership of the AIADMK. We were just discussing with our senior executive editor Abhishek, and he was telling us how this is a dramatic twist that could benefit the DMK most of all. Time now for a short break, but coming up after that, more.
QS and THE, the world's foremost university rankings organizations, have ranked Amity amongst the top 3% universities globally, making it among the very few Indian universities to be included in both rankings. Yet another top ranking for Amity University.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has agreed to resign on July 13, according to the Speaker of Parliament. This comes after thousands of protesters, furious over his government's inability to address crippling economic turmoil, crashed in the capital and stormed President's official residence. Meanwhile, Sri Lankan Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe agreed to resign on Saturday after party leaders in Parliament demanded both he and the President Gotabaya Rajapaksa to step down.
Both has a seat.
And we are getting you all the latest on the AIADMK tussle, in which the Madras High Court decides in favor of the E. Payanisamy faction of the party. It's a setback for OPS, once considered the political heir of AIADMK Supremo, the late Jayalalitha. But now the ball is in the EPS court, and the road is paved for him to take over as the single supreme leader of the AIADMK. He already holds sway over most of its party workers. So coming up in a short while, more on EPS officially taking...
We have been very supportive of Sri Lanka and we are trying to help. There is no refugee crisis right now.
On the occasion of Eid al-Adha on Sunday, Border Security Force and Pakistan Rangers exchanged wishes at the Atari-Wagah border. As a part of traditional gesture between two border guarding forces, BSF exchanged gestures to Pakistan Rangers.
आज ईद के इस मुबारक अवसर पर जॉइंट चेक पोस्ट अटारी से सीमा सुरक्षा बल के द्वारा पाकिस्तान रेंजर्स को स्वीट्स ऑफर किए गए। ये हमारे देश की परंपराओं, सद्भावना की नीति और शांति की पहल के भी परिचायक हैं।
The BSF Gujarat frontier has also exchanged greeting and sweets with Pakistan Rangers. In a statement, BSF Gujarat frontier has said that as a goodwill gesture, sweets have been exchanged at multiple border points. Sweets were exchanged at international borders of Kutch and Banaskantha district of Gujarat, as well as at ICP Munabao, Gadra, Somrar, Kilnor and Varna.
Well, it is a setback to the OPS camp. EPS officially takes over as the interim AIADMK General Secretary. Doors are smashed, tires set ablaze and headquarters vandalized as OPS and EPS cadres comes to blows.
Mobile. No, right?
Mega rebellion in the Goa Congress Party sacks top leader Michael Lobo, 5 others now incommunicado. The top court is set to hear a slew of petitions as it's the Shinde camp versus the Uddhav Thackeray camp war that's reached the Supreme Court. Supreme Court is also set to hear the fugitive Vijay Mallya's contempt case and pronounce its quantum of sentence today. The IMD issues an orange alert in Mumbai, red warning for Telangana as heavy rains continue to lash the country. Well, the AIADMK's crucial General Council meeting today that's still going on, in fact, has annulled the dual leadership structure and has appointed Edappadi K. Palaniswamy as the party's interim general secretary. Now, with this move, O. Paneerselvam, who's also facing waning support with the AIADMK, is seen to be losing more ground. But even as this meeting is taking place outside the AIADMK headquarters, the two sets of supporters of EPS and OPS have actually come to blows. There were stones pelted, tires were set ablaze, banners of these two leaders were set ablaze. All of this is happening outside the headquarters of the AIADMK. Now, this meeting that's taking place of the General Council, in fact, is taking place a little away from the headquarters. It's a wedding hall that has been booked essentially to hold about 3,000 of supporters and office bearers of the AIADMK. Now, this meeting, of course, has gone ahead after the Madras High Court had rejected a plea from the AIADMK leader O. Paneerselvam to stay the conduct of the General Council meeting. The court said that it cannot interfere in the squabbles of a political party. Now, this, of course, is also seen largely as a battle for the legacy of J. Jayalalitha. What we are given to understand is that right now, OPS is at the party's headquarters. So even as EPS has managed to get himself elected as the interim president of the party, essentially also annulling the dual leadership system that we've seen in the party for quite some time now, OPS has made his way to the headquarters of the AIADMK. Abhishek Kapoor also on the phone line with me. Abhishek, you know, as with everything in Tamil Nadu politics, we are seeing it all today. Each of the sides coming to blows, and even as all of that happens, political moves being made inside that General Council meeting.
You know, so much coming to blows is concerned, even in the best of times, Tamil Nadu is known to practice very passion-driven politics. People are very sensitive. We have seen temples coming up for their favorite leaders like NGR and Jayalalitha. We have seen, fights happening. We have seen on the death of Jayalalitha, for example, so many people had committed suicide. As also, of course, during the time of the death of Kalaina, those reports had come in that people were inflicting wounds on themselves. So that's how the nature of politics is there in the state. But I think what we are seeing is a leadership tussle finally taking some direction with the judiciary saying hands off, with the Madras High Court saying that it's not for them to get inside the leadership tussle and to decide when the meeting should happen, when it should not happen. It's for all these leaders to come together and do that. So I think there would be a brief hiatus, as some experts suggest, that OPS, despite taking this insult, I would say, in the sense that there is a party which has been hijacked right from under his nose. He was the coordinator, EPS was joint coordinator, but the fact that on the apparatus, on the ground, it is EPS who held sway. Since he was chief minister, he perhaps succeeded in putting in his own men and women at key posts in the organization, particularly the district secretary level. Most of the tickets given or those who have won, the MLAs are from his faction. So I think things have come together to really move in the direction of EPS becoming the leader, and which he has been elected as general secretary. Remember, it's EPS. Interestingly, both EPS and OPS had come together to abolish this post only 6 months back, in December, 7 months back, so that they could permanently remove the obstacle of Sasikala and the baggage that she came with, insofar as perception is concerned, from sticking to ADMK. And now, once Secy is completely out of the way, the EPS faction has really crawled back and taken control of the party from behind, coming from behind, as they say. And there was a resolution passed by the executive committee to amend the bylaws that there should be a coordinator and joint coordinator, under which OPS and EPS had worked out this mechanism of 2 posts. But subsequently, we saw how the EPS faction really started complaining, and since they realized that they had the numbers with them, they even passed insinuations that OPS actually had a truck with the DMK leadership, something going from behind, and that really led to this sort of crisis in the party, followed by a rebellion by the EPS group wanting changes again. And despite OPS faction getting some reprieve at the level of lower judiciary when a status quo was ordered, now the Madras High Court paving the way for this meeting because most members of the 2,000 plus strong General Council had petitioned that a meeting should take place and the leader should be decided. Now, with the EPS faction really getting its way, I think for now at least, there is that bit of clarity that EPS is the leader. He controls the party organization as it exists today. Whether in future, for now, of course, OPS has no option, but if he makes compromises and then keeps his battle for the later day, maybe some faction war might break out in the future as well.
Absolutely, Abhishek. Now, OPS, of course, still holds the post of the party's treasurer. Do you think that EPS will move to remove him from that as well? Because if that happens, it will perhaps be another level to which this battle would have been taken.
I think, Nupur, that would depend on what course of action OPS takes from here on. If he is willing to make compromise and accepts his status as now to EPS, which for most of the time he has been, in fact, like that EPS remained chief minister after the demise of Vijay Mallya, and the fact that he controls the party, even OPS can read the writing on the wall. So it's unlikely that he would rebel, he would, go away, break away, make his own faction, not immediately at least. And in that sense, if he's willing to compromise, if he's willing to buy peace, I don't think even EPS would take a precipitate action, because remember, even he has some time before he consolidates his leadership even further. So I think this is a beginning. There might be a temporary truce, as I understand, and subsequently, if the factions really play out among themselves, remember, many times leaders also act when they get a feedback from their cadres on the ground. So if the OPS faction says that they cannot take this humiliation and that their leader should be doing something, OPS might have to act just to preserve his leadership. So I think all those things, all those dynamics would really play out. But as of now, I would say the leadership issue of ADMK is settled. It is settled in favor of EPS, and OPS has no option but to accept it and move on. So I think for the time being, things seem sort of settled so far as the opposition ADMK in Tamil Nadu politics is concerned.
Absolutely. Just an update that we are getting. The AIADMK General Council meeting has adopted a resolution demanding the Bharat Ratna for Periyar, M.G. Ramachandran and J. Jayalalitha. Abhishek, I wanted to bring you to take your opinion on how this legacy battle for J. Jayalalitha is going to play out, because essentially we've seen the AIADMK has these cult figures. For instance, J. Jayalalitha, she was so huge in the party as well as in Tamil Nadu's politics. Do you think that either of these leaders can follow in those very, very large, footsteps?
Remember, Nupur, both NGR and Jayalalitha were celebrities before they joined politics. They were big names in the film industry. They were superstars. So obviously, those boots are going to remain too big for anyone, for OPS, for EPS, for Secy, for anyone in the present ADMK leadership or on the sidelines so far as Secy is concerned to fill. And that's why they have no option but to propagate and continue to persist with propping up the legacy and the charisma and the aura MGR and Jayalalitha. We have to see this demand of Bharat Ratna for the two leaders in the context of that limitation of the present leadership only. Having said that, if you look at the present two leaders, both EPS and OPS, they were essentially cadres who were picked up by Jayalalitha, both OPS and EPS, through the doors of Sasikala, interestingly, both of them, and groomed not to become leaders. They were groomed as backroom boys sometimes. They were groomed as strategic assets in the party. They were groomed to assist to the leadership of Jayalalitha. Like it happens with all these typically one leader based cadre parties, and since Jayalalitha did not do any air, it's obvious that there would be struggle for leadership and the party might dwindle over a period of time. Obviously, because of lack of any leader matching the charisma of or aura of the earlier leader, in this case Jayalalitha. So I think that's what we are seeing. There has been attrition. ADMK has lost two elections, the general election and the assembly election, and this conflict between the two of them, OPS and EPS, has gone on for 3+ years. And even now, with the latest developments, I see only a temporary truce till the time that the two sides really gather their own forces and try to measure each other and decide to, start next round of conflict. So I think, irrespective of whether at some stage Bharat Ratna is given to MGR and Jayalalitha, in which case, why not to, as Tamil Nadu politics stands, a demand for Bharat Ratna for Kalainar would not be far behind. We don't know whether Kalainar would have wanted it. What is important is that for now at least, a semblance of calm would prevail. We don't know for how long, but it's purely a function of how much OPS is willing to accept his status as number 2 to EPS, and that's where the grain lies. For the time being, there is truce, and OPS has no option but to join EPS, who has been now elected as General Secretary of the party and effectively controls all the chains of ADMK.
All right, Abhishek, do stay with us. Just to tell our viewers of the latest developments that we have right now, the AIADMK's General Council that is meeting even as we speak has adopted about 16 resolutions. Now, one of them, of course, essentially drops the dual leadership of the party. Rather, it has in fact revived the General Secretary's post, and EPS has been appointed as the Interim General Secretary of the AIADMK. Now, this took place after the Madras High Court allowed for this meeting to go ahead. Do remember the OPS had approached the court asking for a stay on this meeting, but that did not happen and the court allowed for this meeting to go ahead, after which we saw, of course, EPS being elected as the General Secretary. Let me go back to Abhishek on this. Abhishek, now what we're also learning is that even as this takes place outside the AIADMK headquarters, there is considerable tension. Now, supporters of both sides are clashing, and is it perhaps looking likely that there could be a split down the middle, or would you say, that probably be too early?
Nupur, I would say at some stage it might happen, but not immediately. Remember that this General Council meeting was called by the EPS faction. The OPS faction tried to oppose it. It went to court. It did not succeed. And it shows that it does not have the numbers. So effectively, going by whatever bylaws of the party, it seems that the OPS faction does not have the numbers. It is already the lightweight faction. It is already sidelined. And with the courts taking the position that they have, like the Madras High Court today saying that it has no business meddling in party's internal affairs, it's for the leadership issues for them to decide. I think with this hands-off approach, OPS won't see much of a protection coming by way of judicial intervention also. And in that sense, with no numbers, I don't think OPS would do anything that would precipitate a crisis immediately, knowing fully well that there is nobody with him to support. The only window where OPS might see some light coming from is the fact that in the party executive committee that had amended bylaws to get coordinator and joint coordinator post after eliminating the post of general secretary, which has been brought back today. At that time, both OPS and EPS were elected unopposed by the primary membership of the party. Now, OPS might say that the primary membership of the party is more representative of the overall ADMK than just the general council with 2,000 members. But the fact of the matter is that was part of a deal between OPS and EPS, and that's why all the primary members came together and voted for the two leaders. If the deal is broken, if EPS sees, EPS has tasted blood, he sees that he's the boss now. He controls the apparatus. He has sort of protection from the judiciary. Then, in that sense, I think he might not be willing to really let OPS wield the primary member and the general body or general committee, whatever is below this general council, to really come back and restore the leadership of OPS. In that sense, I think I would still, unless we can get some Tamil Nadu experts and who can explain if there is a possibility, which is unlikely, OPS effectively has no option but to buy peace with EPS as of now.
Right, as in fact Abhishek is pointing out, we're now learning that the resolution that has been adopted at this meeting also says that an election for the General Secretary's post will be held in about 4 months from now. That's at the general body meeting that's happening. But Abhishek, I also wanted to bring in the fact that there was just some time back that these two leaders had actually gotten together to suspend Sasikala when she was in jail. So, what's happening today essentially points to the fragile nature of the AIADMK's top leaders' relationships with each other.
Well, Nupur, EPS is already General Secretary pending the final election. He has been appointed Interim General Secretary or elected by the General Council. About their coming together, obviously it was to do away with the common enemy in the form of Sasikala. And it was General Council, in fact, which had made Sasikala an Interim General Secretary immediately after the death of Vijay Mallya. And Sasikala made OPS resign within 2 months and made EPS the chief minister at that time. But subsequently there was falling out between EPS and Sasikala also. And Sasikala, for example, thought that EPS did not do enough to get her out of jail. And in fact, that's how the coming together of EPS and OPS happened. OPS was in fact carrying out what he called a Dharam Yuddha against the Sasikala clan and hence the EPS government at that time. But when EPS also turned against Sasikala, and
all right.
then the two realized...
Abhishek, just hold your thoughts for a minute. We are just going to cut across to what's taking place inside that meeting.
ராதாகிருஷ்ணன் சட்டமன்ற உறுப்பினர் அவர்கள், கழக அமைப்பு செயலாளர், திருப்பூர் புறநகர் மேற்கு மாவட்ட கழகத்துடைய செயலாளர், முன்னாள் அமைச்சர் திரு வாலாஜாபாத் பா கணேசன், சட்டமன்ற உறுப்பினர், முன்னாள் சட்டமன்ற உறுப்பினர் அவர்கள், கழக அமைப்பு செயலாளர் திருமதி கீர்த்திகா முனியசாமி அவர்கள், கழக மகளிர் அணி இணை செயலாளர் திரு PK வைரமுத்து அவர்கள், புதுக்கோட்டை தெற்கு மாவட்ட கழகத்துடைய செயலாளர், முன்னாள் வாரிய தலைவர்
I can't hear properly. I can't understand.
சட்டமன்ற உறுப்பினர் அவர்கள், திருவண்ணாமலை வடக்கு மாவட்ட கழகத்துடைய செயலாளர் திரு RK ரவிச்சந்திரன் அவர்கள், விருதுநகர் கிழக்கு மாவட்ட கழகத்துடைய செயலாளர் வாலிமொழிபவர்கள், அனைத்து பொதுக்குழு உறுப்பினர்களும் இந்த 8 தீர்மானங்களை நிறைவேற்றுகிறார்.
Inside. Now, what we know right now is that the AIADMK has passed about 16 resolutions. One of them essentially annuls the dual leadership format. The other one, of course, has appointed EPS as the interim general secretary of the AIADMK. There are going to be elections scheduled for the next 4 months when the primary members of the party can elect the general secretary. Right now, EPS is the interim general secretary. Now, we'll have to wait and watch out for how OPS reacts to this. this. We are still waiting for that reaction to come in. Do remember that he's still the treasurer of the party, and he is at the AIADMK headquarters. This meeting, of course, is taking place elsewhere. It is a huge hall that has been commanded for the purposes of this particular meeting that is taking place. Now, this meeting, of course, went ahead after the Madras High Court essentially refused to stay the meeting. Do remember that OPS had gone to court asking for the court to intervene and stop this meeting, but the court, however, said that it cannot interfere in the internal party matters of a political outfit. So this meeting thus went ahead. Now, there are 4 key takeaways from what has happened in this meeting. There will be no dual leadership in the AIADMK anymore. What we are also seeing is the appointment of EPS as the interim general secretary of the party. So he's the man who holds the party at the moment, at least. Now, in the morning, of course, we saw how this rift between EPS and OPS is now widening. There were supporters of each side which were protesting outside the AIADMK headquarters, and it came to blows over there. There were tires that are set on fire. There were other posters of leaders that were set on fire. So all of that took place outside the AIADMK's headquarters. All right, I think we've got Rohit on the phone line. He's giving us more details of what's happening inside that meeting. Rohit, take us through the resolutions that have been adopted at the AIADMK's meeting.
இதே தெய்வம் புரட்சி தலைவர் அவர்களையும் இதே தெய்வம் புரட்சி தலைவி அம்மா அவர்களையும் வணங்குகிறேன். இந்த பொதுக்குழு சீர்மிகு பொதுக்குழு, இந்த பொதுக்குழு சிறப்புமிகு பொதுக்குழு, வரலாற்றில் நிரந்தரமாக பேசப்படும் வரலாற்று சிறப்புமிக்க பொதுக்குழு. கழக வரலாற்றில் தலைவர்கள் பொதுச் செயலாளர்கள் ஆனார்கள். ஆனால் ஒரு தூய தொண்டன், தொண்டர்களின் குரலாக இடைக்கால பொதுச் செயலாளர் அவர்கள் விரைவில் பொதுச் செயலாளராக உருவெடுத்திருக்கும் அண்ணன் புரட்சி தலைமகன் எடப்பாடியார் அவர்களை வணங்குகிறேன். வணக்கத்திற்குரிய அவைத்தலைவர் அவர்களே, தலைமை கழக நிர்வாகிகளே, நாடாளுமன்ற உறுப்பினர்களே, சட்டமன்ற உறுப்பினர்களே, மக்கள் பிரதிநிதிகளே, கூட்டுறவு சங்க நிர்வாகிகளே, அனைத்து செயற்குழு பொதுக்குழு நிர்வாகிகளே, நண்பர்களே, சகோதரிகளே, சகோதரர்களே, உங்கள் அத்தனை பேருக்கு என்னுடைய பணிவான வணக்கம்.
AIADMK's General Council that is meeting has empowered Palaniswamy to steer the party as a single supreme leader in his position as the interim General Secretary. Earlier on, of course, the meeting revived the General Secretary's post and picked Edapadi K. Palaniswamy as the interim General Secretary. Now, do remember that the meeting has also resolved to hold organizational polls to formally elect the General Secretary. This has taken place after the bylaws of the party has been tweaked. We understand that in the next 4 months, these elections will take place and all primary members of the party will be allowed to vote and choose the party's General Secretary. Now, this meeting that you are seeing on your screens is taking place as the Madras High Court refused to interfere in the party's internal political matters, saying that it cannot be involved in internal party matters. Do remember that OPS had in fact moved the Madras High Court asking for it to stay the proceedings of the General Council's meeting, but that did not happen and the meeting went ahead. And since the meeting began, there have been about 16 resolutions which have been adopted by the General Council. The primary among them, of course, is the annulment of the dual leadership system that the party had been following, with EPS and OPS as co-coordinators of the party. Now, that has been done away with. But what we have in its stead is the fact that the AIADMK General Council revived the General Secretary's post. It picked E. Palaniswamy as its interim General Secretary. Thereafter, it also empowered Palaniswamy to steer the party as a single supreme leader in his position as the interim General Secretary. We are also learning that there is likely to be an election the next 4 months or so where primary members can vote. That's the latest that we are getting from the meeting that's taking place in Chennai. We'll keep you updated as to what's happening, the political fortunes of the AIADMK. Stay with us.
reading allows us to become familiar with ourselves.
We don't read, we won't know what is knowledge. I just find it very interesting to know people's lives, how they went through certain situations, how they dealt with things.
So wherever you want to go in life, if you read books along those lines, then that would really help you in growing.
Reading could mean a million different things to every individual. What does it mean to you? Visit readindia.info to find out more.
Prime Minister has posited a picture of Ma Kali, which is source of India's spiritual energy, which is a unifying factor.
माँ काली का यही चेतना बंगाल और पूरे भारत की आस्था में है। माँ काली का वो असीम आशीर्वाद हमेशा भारत के साथ।
Because of the government intervention in the space sector is very evident. They want to make a great reforms in space sector. So primarily the space agency has been the only ISRO so far. So they want a private entity to come in, not only to as a supplier of space items, but more into building rockets, satellites and applications on their own and own it and operate it. So for that the government is asking to prepare a policy which we have prepared. So a space policy 2022 is already prepared, in which we allow space private entities to own and operate satellites. This is a very big change. All satellites of India are currently owned only by ISRO. And every television broadcasting channels are provided only through ISRO. This is going to change. So it's not only the communication side, it's also going to change the remote sensing side. No, imaging satellites are owned only by ISRO and defense only. Now private entities can own imaging satellites. They can take photograph, images. They can use value-added products and also market.
Maharashtra continues to face heavy rains in several areas. The district of Gadchiroli is reeling from a flood-like situation due to heavy downpour. Several roads have been submerged underwater due to the incessant and heavy rains in the region. The water has entered the houses in Gadchiroli as people in the district are suffering from this calamity. The India Meteorological Department issued an orange alert for the Gadchiroli district, predicting heavy to very heavy showers accompanied by thunderstorms with lightning. Heavy rains have been reported in Maharashtra's Nanded in the last 20.
Top headlines at 10:30. Setback for OPS scam. EPS officially takes over as interim AIADMK General Secretary. Doors smashed, tires set ablaze and headquarters vandalized as OPS and EPS cadres come to blows. Rebellion in Goa. Congress party sacks top leader Michael Lobo, 5 others now incommunicado. Top court to hear slew of petitions as the Shinde versus Uddhav war intensifies. Remember, EPS has been elected as the AIADMK Interim General Secretary in the General Council meet that was held in Vanagaram. This after the Madras High Court in its verdict also made it clear that it will not intervene in the political affairs of the AIADMK. The live visuals that are coming in which shows that the war is on for the legacy of Jayalalitha. And in fact, just the key takeaways to take you through the key takeaways of the SC verdict, in which it has categorically stated that there will be no dual, in fact, which has rejected OPS plea that has by the Madras High Court. In fact, in the meeting that was held, EPS has been elected as the new Interim General Secretary. Elections for the AIADMK General Secretary, we are told, will also be held in 4 months' time, and that there will be no dual leadership in the AIADMK, which means that there is an open rift within the OPS and EPS cadre. The live visuals that we are getting to you from outside the AIADMK headquarters, in which you can see the cadre there raising flags. It is a big win there for the EPS camp, as the OPS plea has now been rejected by the Madras High Court. We'll try and go across to our reporters as well to get us some more information. But as of now, you can see the live visuals that we are getting to you from outside the AIADMK headquarters. The Madras High Court has said that it will not intervene in the party squabbles, and also rejecting the OPS plea there that was filed by the OPS camp. In fact, in more news that is coming in about the meeting that was chaired just a short while back by EPS, in which it's been decided that EPS is a new interim general secretary of the AIADMK. Elections for the AIADMK general secretary will be held in the next 4 months, and that there will be no dual leadership within the party, and which also means that there is an open rift there between the between OPS and EPS. So, which also essentially means that there is an end to the AIADMK dual leadership. Polls for post will be held in the next 4 months for the new general secretary. In fact, these are the live visuals that we are getting to you that shows the celebrations which are galore among the EPS faction. Pragadish is joining us, getting us all those live updates. Pragadish, if you could talk to us about the scenes we are seeing right now of the celebrations there among the EPS faction outside the AIADMK headquarters.
Yes, it's quite jubilant here. There's thousands of supporters gathered outside the wedding hall where the meeting is taking place, the General Council meeting is taking place. And there's massive cutouts and banners, all of MGR Jayalalitha and EPS. There's almost no supporters of Paneerselvam here. And I think they've all boycotted it, and they are still waiting. And there was also a massive commotion that happened outside the AIADMK headquarters in Roypeta, and none of them have turned up to the event here. It looks like it's a massive win for EPS now, at least for another 4 months, when there could be possible elections for the party.
Yes. Pragadish, this also essentially means that the infighting within the AIADMK is in the open, because the battle, as we know, became legal as well, with the court now rejecting the plea that was filed by the by OPS. If you could take us through the key takeaways of the SC verdict as well.
So there were 16 resolutions passed here today, but before that, the court had obviously refused to stay the GC meeting that was supposed to take place. And this was the final last resort that OPS had to sort of convince his own followers and the rest of the party. But it looks like it's all about the trailer. EPS is taking over the cup. Over to you.
Yes. Well, Pragadish there getting us all those details of the SC verdict, in which it has rejected the OPS plea that was filed, and now it's been decided that OPS will, in fact, EPS will continue, will be the interim general secretary. So HC there rejecting OPS plea to stay the AIADMK meet that was now held, in which it was decided, in fact, in this plea, in this meet that was held, it was decided that Palaniswamy will be the new interim general secretary, in that elections for the AIADMK general secretary will be held in the next 4 months. Also, the meet has also put an end to the dual leadership that existed in the AIADMK till now. So now we'll have Palaniswamy, who will be the head of this party, who's now been elected as the interim general secretary. The elections for the next general secretary will be held in the next 4 months as well. And as you can see, the celebration there, which is galore among the EPS faction outside the AIADMK headquarters, in which you can see the cadre there paying tributes to Jayalalitha there, the former chief minister of Tamil Nadu. Essentially a win for the EPS faction after the court rejecting OPS plea. And now we have only single leader in the AIADMK, which is E. Palaniswamy as well. So celebrations there, which are which we can see on our screens as well. And in fact, the the two factions, the infighting within the two factions is now in the open. EPS versus OPS. In fact, in these visuals, you can see how the violence has also broken out when we talk about the infighting between the two factions of the AIADMK. This after EPS has been elected as a new interim general secretary. In fact, 16 resolutions have been passed in this particular meet that was held, in which there's been a proposal that has been made for Bharat Ratna for Jayalalitha, MGR, as well as Jayalalitha, MGR as well. So those are some of the highlights of this meet that was held just a short while back. And as you can see, the workers there who are seen celebrating the victory of the EPS camp there. In fact, the court has categorically said that it would not intervene in the party squabbles, which rejecting the AIADMK leader and former coordinator OPS as well. In fact, those are the live visuals as well that we can see on our screens of the EPS cadre there celebrating the win for the EPS camp there. This after the resolution that was 16 resolutions, remember, that were passed in this particular meet that was shared just a short while back, in which EPS has been declared as the interim general secretary. Remember, the Madras High Court has rejected a plea that was filed by the former coordinator OPS to stay the conduct of the General Council meet of the party, and following that the meet was held in which it was decided that EPS will be the interim general secretary. In this particular meet that was held, 16 resolutions were passed in which proposals were made for Bharat Ratna, for MGR and Jayalalitha as well. In fact, in this general meet, it was also decided that there will be no dual leadership when we talk of the AIADMK party, which means that EPS will be the sole leader of the party leadership, has been declared as the interim general secretary of the AIADMK. So next elections for this particular post will be held in the next 4 months. This resolution that was passed in this particular meet, it has also been said that a proposal was passed for MGR, Periyar along with Jayalalitha as well. So big win there for the EPS faction there, as he has now been elected as the interim general secretary. And more breaking news coming in. We are told that the United Nations report says that India is projected to surpass China as world's most populous country during 2023. So UN report there flagging concerns that India's population is set to cross China. In 2023, next year, India is said to be the most populous country and even surpassing China there. That is the report by the United Nations, which says that India will be the most populous country by 2023. So flagging concerns there, an alarm there being raised by the United Nations in this United Nations report, which says in which India is projected to surpass China when we talk about one of the most populous country across the globe. So India is being said to cross the population. In fact, the World Population Prospects 2022 by the United Nations Department said that the global population is projected to reach 8 million by 15 November 2022. Remember, the global population is growing at its slowest rate since 1950, having fallen under 1% in 2020 as well. In fact, in this report by the United Nations suggested that the world population could grow to around 8.5 billion in 2030 and 9.7 billion in 2050. It has also projected a peak of around 10.4 billion people during 2080s and to remain at that level until 2100. So flagging concerns there, United Nations report, United Nations in its report has projected India to be the most populous country by 2023. In fact, it has also said that the world's two most popular regions in 2022 were Eastern and Southeastern Asia, with 2.3 billion people, representing 29% of the global population. Madhurima is joining us to give more details on that. Madhurima, if you could take us through the details of the United Nations report.
Well, it's a very crucial report that is coming from the United Nations, as India is projected to surpass China as the world's most populous country by 2023. And this report that comes today forecasts that India's tally would reach 8 billion by the mid-November 2022, that is this year, and by the next year, that is 23, it's going to surpass the China's population. And this United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs Population Division has said that the global population is projected, like I said, to reach 8 billion around November 15th this year. The global population is growing at its slowest since 1950 and has been falling under 1% under 2020. But once again, it is to grow around 8.5 billion in 2030, 9.7 billion in 2050. It is a crucial and a worrisome situation for our country, because we know that our economy is dwindling between 3 to 4 trillion, and in comparison to the population, it falls short at that particular, statistics.
All right, Madhurima, I'm sorry, we'll have to leave it at that. We'll keep coming back to you for more details, but that is the latest coming in, where the United Nations has projected India's population of 1.6 billion in 2050, way ahead of China's 1.3 billion people by the middle of the century. In fact, more details that are now coming in. We are told that some reactions as well coming in. The BJP, we are told, has reacted to this particular report amid concerns of population explosion in the country. We'll try and go across to our reporters to get us more information, but that is the latest coming in. In fact, in this United Nations report, India is said to be the most populous country by next year, even surpassing China for that matter. We'll play out that reaction as well very shortly, but some alarm there being raised by the United Nations in its report, where it has projected India's population to cross, in fact, it has said that the world population to grow around 8.5 billion in 2030. Particularly when we talk about India, its population is set to surpass China in this particular report that has been put out by the United Nations. So, the United Nations there flagging concerns over population explosion. The United Nations in its report has said that India's population is set to cross even that of China by next year. And flagging concerns there, United Nations has said that, talking about the world, it has said that the world population could grow to around 8.5 billion in 2030 and 9.7 billion in 2050. So huge concern there on population explosion by the United Nations in its report there, saying that India is set to be the most populous country by next year. We have Madhurima back with us. Madhurima, if you are still with us, take us through the details of the United Nations report.
Well, once again, the United Nations has put out this very crucial report, which points out at an alarming situation in our country, that it is going to surpass in terms of population China, which is at present the most populous country on the globe. And according to the United Nations, this report has come out today, which said that the world population is forecast to reach 8 billion by the mid-November 2022. Let me also highlight that it is going to reach around 8 billion somewhere around November 15, 2022. But it would be a first for a country, as it is going to surpass the numbers that China holds, and it is a worrisome situation for us, because in comparison to China, which is somewhere around 14 trillion economy, we are still making efforts to reach the 5 trillion mark. We're dwindling between 3 to 4 at present, specifically because of the pandemic that hit us. However, the United Nations report also suggests that the population of the world could go around 8.5 billion in 2030 and 9.7 by 2050. However, this year's this particular milestone has been broadcasted by the United Nations today.
Yes.
Highlights that the entire population of...
All right, Madhurima, we'll continue the discussion on the other side as well. Thanks for the moment, for giving us all those details. Slipping into a very short break. On the other side, we'll get you the latest as the SC is set to hear fugitive Mallya's contempt case and pronounce quantum of sentence today. Well, breaking update coming in. That is, we continue with our coverage talking about the concerns over India's growing population, in which the United Nations in its report has said that India's population is set to cross that of China by next year. In fact, the population as of this year stands, India's population is very close to that of China, and with that concern in mind, the United Nations in its report has said that its population is set to cross China. In fact, more breaking news coming in. And more breaking news coming in. Vijay Mallya hearing has begun. In fact, we are told that the Supreme Court has awarded jail term to Mallya. It has awarded, the High Apex Court has awarded 4 months jail term to a fugitive Diamond Heir Vijay Mallya and a fine of 2,000 under contempt charge. Adequate punishment is a must, is what the Supreme Court has said in its hearing. So that is the latest coming in. We are told that the Supreme Court has said that Vijay Mallya did not show any remorse and it is necessary to impose punishment. We have our executive editor for legal affairs, Rhythm, also joining us. Rhythm, if you could take us through the arguments and what the Supreme Court is saying right now.
Let's tell our viewers that the breaking news that's coming in from the Supreme Court of India, it's 4 months jail term to fugitive Vijay Mallya that's been given out by the top court of the country. Remember, this was a verdict that came out in 2017 and it's been given out after Vijay Mallya had been held guilty of contempt because he was unable to give details about how he had dispersed USD 40 million, and therefore the Supreme Court had said in 2017, 6 years ago, he will be in contempt. He'd come to the Supreme Court, he'd started and tried to appeal against this, but he didn't come. It was his lawyer who tried to do this. But the Supreme Court today giving 4 months jail time to Vijay Mallya, whom the government is trying to extradite, has said we must impose adequate sentence on the contemner to uphold the majesty of law and amounts in dispute for available of execution. Let's also tell our viewers he's facing extradition proceedings in the UK courts that Republic has been tracking, but it's the Supreme Court that was first hearing the matter. And I remember when we were hearing it in the Supreme Court was extremely angry with the affidavits that had been filed by Vijay Mallya when he was unable and not giving details of the assets that had been owned by him, his family, his wife and others. He had been convicted of contempt in the court for transferring USD $40 million to his children, which was in violation of the Supreme Court orders. The Supreme Court has now awarded him a 4-month jail term and a fine of 2,000 under contempt charge. Adequate punishment is a must, the Supreme Court today says. This is also coming after the MHA that had been represented by the Solicitor General of India had said that we are trying to ensure that the proceedings to get him back are met. So even as India continues to try and get Vijay Mallya back to India, the top court of the country, in another big blow to him, says once he is back, once he's extradited, a 4-month jail term will also be there. Supreme Court coming down extremely heavily on him. And also they've given out very, while passing this, they've given out statements that say we've said in the judgment action in dispersing $40 million was contempt. Therefore, an adequate sentence needs to be given. They say Vijay Mallya did not show any remorse. It's necessary to impose a punishment and uphold the majesty of law and sentenced him. They directed him to deposit 40 million USD with interest within 4 weeks, which is a big breaking news coming in, and the authorities have been asked to take attachment proceedings in case of his default. So not only has Vijay Mallya today been given out a sentence, but the court has also directed him to deposit the 40 million USD with interest within 4 weeks, and the authorities, if he does not do so, have been told to take attachment proceedings in case of his default. He has been facing double proceedings by the CBI and the ED joint teams in the UK court that asked for his extradition much earlier. As the Supreme Court was to declare this, I also want to say in the last hearing, the three-judge bench that's been led by Justice Lalit told the Solicitor General the court had waited long enough to have Vijay Mallya brought back, and now it's time the court and this case should see the light of the day. The process must go on. So a big blow coming down on Vijay Mallya. Not only has a cost been imposed because of his contempt, he's also been asked to give back the $40 million and also with interest within 4 weeks. Remember, this was 6 years ago on the 9th of May 2017. The Supreme Court had found him guilty of committing contempt of court after he failed to submit details of his assets to the court. I remember we were inside the courtroom when this was happening in the top court, and the top court continued asking questions to his lawyers who were unable to answer about the differences, the discrepancies in the affidavit. It's a very serious charge when an affidavit is filed in black and white before the top court of the country and the court is unable to get proper answers. We remember the consortium of creditors led by the State Bank of India had argued that Mallya had disobeyed court orders by making vague disclosures of the assets and by transferring $40 million payment from the British liquor giant Diageo to his children and ignoring the summons that were given to appear in the court. He had not appeared even once despite several details having been given several times. The court had given him some sort of a leverage by saying, all right, you can appear before us, but he did not. Remember also, Vijay Mallya continues to pursue appeals in the UK in attempt to overturn a bankruptcy order imposed on him by the High Court in London in July. At a case management hearing in the Chancery Division of the High Court in London, Justice Tom Leach concluded a set of interlinked hearings would be heard together, but that is about the UK court that continued to hear the appeals that had been filed by Mallya. The Supreme Court had to declare the punishment for fugitive liquor baron Vijay Mallya in the 2017 contempt case that has happened. He was ordered to return over 6,200 crores in multiple cases in multiple banks, and Solicitor General had said the banks had recovered a total of 18,000 crores from fugitives such as Vijay Mallya, Nirav Modi and Mehul Choksi. But this Vijay Mallya, the 66-year-old fugitive, has been an accused in the bank loan default case involving the now defunct Kingfisher Airlines, which is worth more than 9,000 crores. He's currently in the United Kingdom facing extradition proceedings that are being carried on by a joint mission team of Team India led by the CBI and the ED teams. And what we're really going to now see after the words coming from the Supreme Court are clear, they've also directed him to deposit the 40 million. Will Vijay Mallya be doing this? Will he be able to deposit, and will he deposit the 40 million is crucial. The Supreme Court has also said he did not show any remorse, which is necessary to uphold the majesty of law. Viewers, as this news is coming in, the Supreme Court says if he fails to pay the penalty, jail term is to be extended for 2 months. Alright, as we continue staying with this news, as the top court comes down heavily on Vijay Mallya, up next after a short break, we stay with the breaking news alerts coming in from the top court. Stay on with us.
Getting a cab these days is nearly impossible because half the time you don't get rides. Even if your cab gets booked, you're not sure when it is going to get cancelled or how much you're going to pay. Now, answering all this, Mind has come up with beautiful solutions whereby we don't have a surge rate here because they go by government prescribed rates. Not just that, Mind has a beautiful feature where you incentivize the driver, ensuring that he will come and pick you up on time. So, thanks Mind.
Maharashtra continues to face heavy rains in several areas. The district of Gadchiroli is reeling from a flood-like situation due to heavy downpour. Several roads have been submerged underwater due to the incessant and heavy rains in the region. The water has entered the houses in Gadchiroli as people in the district are suffering from this calamity. The India Meteorological Department issued an orange alert for the Gadchiroli district, predicting heavy to very heavy showers accompanied by thunderstorms with lightning. Heavy rains have been reported in Maharashtra's Nanded in the last 24 hours, causing flood-like situations in several places in the district. Several parts of Maharashtra, including Mumbai, Thane, Palghar, Raigad, Ratnagiri, Pune, have been experiencing heavy downpours. 27 NDRF teams have been deployed across the state amid the heavy rainfall and a red alert issued by IMD. Bureau Report, Republic TV. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has agreed to resign on July 13, according to the Speaker of Parliament. This comes after thousands of protesters, furious over his government's inability to address crippling economic turmoil, crashed in the capital and stormed President's official residence. Meanwhile, Sri Lankan Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe agreed to resign on Saturday after party leaders in Parliament demanded both he and the President Gotabaya Rajapaksa to step down.
Both as a citizen and as Prime Minister, I've generally been in governments where I ensured people had 3 meals and the income is being increased. Well, now we are going to have a contraction in the economy. It may be 3.5, 4, maybe 6. So that's going to be bad. We still haven't had the full impact of the contraction. So this is why we need next year to recover.
Breaking news that's coming in. The Supreme Court has now awarded a 4-month jail term to fugitive Vijay Mallya. This is in a contempt case where the Supreme Court says adequate punishment is a must. If he fails to give the $40 million, then 2 more months shall be added to his jail term. The Supreme Court says he didn't show any remorse. It's necessary to impose punishment to uphold the majesty of law. As the Supreme Court says, there's the quantum of punishment in the contempt case against Vijay Mallya coming as a big blow to him has been announced. Back after a short break, stay on with India's #1 news channel, Republic TV.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has agreed to resign on July 13, according to the Speaker of Parliament. This comes after thousands of protesters, furious over his government's inability to address crippling economic turmoil, crashed in the capital and stormed President's official residence. Meanwhile, Sri Lankan Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe agreed to resign on Saturday after party leaders in Parliament demanded both he and the President Gotabaya Rajapaksa to step down.
Both as a citizen and as Prime Minister, I've generally been in governments where I ensured people had 3 meals and the income is being increased. Well, now we are going to have a contraction in the economy. It may be 3.5, 4, maybe 6. So that's going to be bad. We still haven't had the full impact of the contraction. So this is why we need next year to recover.
Wickremesinghe was appointed as the Prime Minister after anti-government protests forced the resignation of then Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa in May. Following the Prime Minister and President's decision to step down from their top posts, call for elections within a short period of time and install a new government was also taken. Bureau Report, Republic TV.
We have been very supportive of Sri Lanka and we are trying to help. There is no refugee crisis right now.
On the occasion of Eid al-Adha, on Sunday, Border Security Force and Pakistan Rangers exchanged wishes at the Attari-Wagah border. As a part of traditional gesture between two border guarding forces, BSF exchanged gestures to Pakistan Rangers.
आज ईद के इस मुबारक अवसर पर जॉइंट चेक पोस्ट अटारी से सीमा सुरक्षा बल के द्वारा पाकिस्तान रेंजर्स को स्वीट्स ऑफर किए गए। ये हमारे देश की परंपराओं, सद्भावना की नीति और शांति की पहल के भी परिचायक हैं।
The BSF Gujarat frontier has also exchanged greeting and sweets with Pakistan Rangers. In a statement, BSF Gujarat frontier has said that as a goodwill gesture, sweets have been exchanged at multiple border points. Sweets were exchanged at international borders of Kutch and Banaskantha district of Gujarat, as well as at ICP Munabao, Gadra, Somrar, Kilnor and Varnahar in Barmer district of Rajasthan. Bureau Report, Republic TV.
Prime Minister has posited a picture of Ma Kali, which is source of India's spiritual energy, which is a unifying factor.
मां काली का यही चेतना बंगाल और पूरे भारत की आस्था में है। मां काली का वो असीम आशीर्वाद हमेशा भारत के साथ।
Because of the government intervention in the space sector is very evident. They want to make a great reforms in space sector. So primarily the space agency has been the only ISRO so far. So they want a private entity to come in, not only to as a supplier of space items, but more into building rockets, satellites and applications on their own and own it and operate it. So for that the government is asking to prepare a policy which we have prepared. So a space policy 2022 is already prepared, in which we allow space private entities to own and operate satellites. This is a very big change. All satellites of India are currently owned only by ISRO. And every television broadcasting channels are provided only through ISRO. This is going to change. So it's not only the communication side, it's also going to change in remote sensing side. No, imaging satellites are owned only by ISRO and defense only. Now private entities can own imaging satellites. They can take photograph, images. They can use value-added products and also market.
Maharashtra continues to face heavy rains in several areas. The district of Gadchiroli is reeling from a flood-like situation due to heavy downpour. Several roads have been submerged underwater due to the incessant and heavy rains in the region. The water has entered the houses in Gadchiroli.
The Supreme Court comes down heavily on Vijay Mallya. 4-month jail term is awarded. Setback to OPS camp. EPS officially takes over as the interim AIADMK General Secretary. Doors smashed, tires set ablaze and headquarters vandalized as OPS EPS cadres come to blows. Mega rebellion in the Goa Congress. The party sacks top leader Michael Lobo. 5 others are now incommunicado. Top court to hear a slew of petitions as Shinde versus Uddhav Thackeray war has intensified. Now, the Supreme Court has awarded 4 months of jail term to Vijay Mallya and fined him 22,000 rupees under the contempt charge. Ridham Anand Bhardwaj, our legal editor, is joining us live now. Ridham, Mallya, of course, was convicted of contempt of court in 2017. The court taking a very severe view of it, giving him 4 months of jail term.
Yes, absolutely. And Nupur, like you said, 6 years ago, he was held guilty of contempt. This is because he had transferred $40 million to his son and his family, despite the Supreme Court not getting enough reasons as to what he'd done with the money. This was in violation of the Supreme Court orders. We remember in 2017, we were inside the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court was extremely aghast at the way the affidavit had been filed and no details about the assets had been given. At that time, this was basically stated when the State Bank of India led consortium was asking for money back. I want to also go across to our guest Nupur Deshratan Nigam, advocate from the Supreme Court, joining us. Mr. Nigam, we've clearly seen today the Supreme Court comes down extremely heavily on Vijay Mallya. They say pay back the money. If you can't, 4 months jail term will be also extended to 2 months extra jail term. But the biggest thing according to me is that if this money is not paid back, then there will be attachment of certain properties and assets.
Dr. Mallya was avoiding the court process in India. In fact, the court posted it for this time because they were waiting for all the extradition proceedings in UK to attain finality. And once it attained finality and Dr. Mallya exhausted all his avenues of appeal in United Kingdom, the court proceeded. Court was being very lenient with him. And despite the fact that he gave very vague answers, did not disclose about the assets and did not even disclose about transferring 40 million, as you said, to his children's. And therefore, the court, this was a violative of the court order, which had restrained him from transferring funds. So he was clearly in contempt and the maximum sentence is 6 months under the contempt of court proceedings. So 4 months have been given. As you were saying, if he does not deposit the money, 2 months will go. then failing which all the assets, I think the assets have already been attached in other matters. I think about 11,000 crore assets have been already attached. So some recovery proceedings will start, the auction proceedings will start in this matter, and the money will be recovered since the assets have already been attached since number of cases are going on against him. So ultimately the money is secured, but the majesty of law and judiciary must prevail, and he should have come and surrendered before the court. In fact, the amicus curiae Jaideep Gupta was appointed to in fact assist the court on his behalf. So ultimately all opportunities were given. In fact, his lawyer said he doesn't have any instructions to argue on the quantum of sentence. So court was quite helpless. It was bound to be, this kind of an order was bound to be passed. So he has been given his due chance and he has not taken them, and he has to face the music of law.
Absolutely. And Mr. Nigam, we also know it's not the first time Vijay Mallya has been questioned by the Indian courts or the Indian government. I remember in the UK courts, he's attacked the Supreme Court of India and said they're biased against him. He's gone ahead and spoken against the CBI and the ED joint mission that had tried to get his extradition. Today, as he faces bankruptcy charges in the UK courts, today as he faces the extradition proceedings, we're still waiting to get him back, like the Solicitor General told the Supreme Court that those MEA continues to track those proceedings. The larger point here continues to be, today in another contempt case, the court held him guilty, a big blow to him, because $40 million needs to be returned by him, or attachment of properties and assets shall take place.
Yes, certainly. And then the auction will start. And when, auction takes place, the actual price of the assets is not realized. It is always lower. That is what my experience goes. So he will be cuffing a lot of assets worth much more than the 40 million. And it should be, I think, in his own interest to pay 40 million and save those assets. And the extradition is not being possible because I think it has been told to the court some kind of secret proceedings have been, instituted against him in United Kingdom, probably as a strategy by him or his own, network there, so that he doesn't go to India. So, but since it has been filed there, some kind of secret proceedings, I think Government of India has to contest them and to ensure that he is brought back to India as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Nigam, for that big breaking news coming in, where Vijay Mallya has got another jail term from the Supreme Court that says he pays up the money or he will be in jail.
All right, news just coming in. It's a big setback for Uddhav Thackeray's camp. The Supreme Court has refused to list the matter for today, as Uddhav Thackeray had asked for. The Supreme Court said that no action will be taken on Shinde MLAs till the bench is set up. I think we've got Rhythm with us. Rhythm, explain to us what's happened in the Supreme Court. We understand at the moment the Supreme Court has said that status quo should remain.
Nupur, the breaking news that's come in the Maharashtra political crisis drama from the Supreme Court is there was a mentioning made by the Uddhav Thackeray camp led by Kapil Sibal in the Supreme Court today. He wanted the matter to be listed. There are 3 pleas related to the Maharashtra crisis that the Supreme Court is hearing. Sibal said the disqualification petitions are listed tomorrow. It was listed on 27th. He's talking about the dates. Then he says that listed today. The Chief Justice says, please inform the Assembly Speaker not to take any hearing. They are not listing any matter today. The crux of the matter is the Supreme Court is saying that for now there will be maintenance of the status quo in the matter of disqualification of MLAs. They've also said the Speaker was to decide on disqualification of the Uddhav Thackeray faction MLAs tomorrow. He should not be going ahead and listing any matters for some time. So as of now, it's a setback for Uddhav camp because the court has said that we will hear these matters later on, Nupur, whereas they wanted an immediate hearing. The Supreme Court also at the same time has said that for now there will be no action, but the Speaker should also not continue with any action. So I also I will just give out another news that's coming in on this too. just give me a second, Nupur.
All right, stay with us, Rhythm, as Rhythm tries to gather herself and bring us the news. What we are given to understand is that at prima facie, this does seem to be essentially ruling in favor right now of the Eknath Shinde camp. Is that how we should be reading this, Rhythm?
Yes. In fact, Nupur, I also want to, on this, go across to Piyush, who's joining us live. The Supreme Court, I'll just put this into perspective for our viewers, has today deferred both the disqualification proceedings that were initiated by the Deputy Speaker against the rebel Sena MLAs and the present Speaker's counter proceedings against other faction Sena MLAs, saying the matter would take some time to be listed, which is going to be seen as a relief for the Shinde camp. He's also said, tell the Speaker's office, Piyush, not to go ahead with the proceedings.
Well, yes, Rhythm, it is now being seen as a very big sign of relief for Shinde camp and a setback for Uddhav Thackeray camp. Remember that Kapil Sibal wanted to have early hearing on all these pleas, but now Supreme Court is saying that matter will be listed, and after the compilation of the bench, then only it would be heard. If we talk about this entire case, remember that the Eknath Shinde camp had moved to Supreme Court when the then Speaker of NCP, he had sent a notice to all the MLAs. Around 16 MLAs were there from Eknath Shinde camp where they were asked as to why they should not be disqualified, after which Eknath Shinde camp had moved to Supreme Court, and at the time itself they had made it very clear that they are not supporting Mahavikas Aghadi. In fact, they have taken back their support from the corrupt government of Mahavikas Aghadi. The then Speaker had in fact asked the Shinde camp MLAs to respond within 2 weeks, but the Shinde camp decided to move to Supreme Court, and now Supreme Court has said that it is going to hear the matter on some other day. At the time, Supreme Court had also issued notice to Speaker, to the Shiv Sena party leader on the floor of the House, and also to central government. So after listening to all the responses, we are getting to know that the Supreme Court, I'm also getting information from inside, which our colleague Sambhav is also telling us. He's telling us that it's a big relief to Shinde camp, where there will be no action against the rebel MLAs till the bench sets up by Chief Justice of India hears the matter. So it is going to take more time. Until then, there will be no actions taken against these 16 rebel MLAs of Shiv Sena. We'll have to wait and watch what is going to happen in next hearing when CGI hears the entire matter, because a bench needs to be set up. This is what Supreme Court is saying, and then CGI would be hearing these all the pleas, all the petitions. Those are being filed not only by Shinde camp but also by Uddhav Thackeray camp. Rhythm.
All right, so as Piyush is pointing out, we appear to have reached a state where the court will hear all this later. Now, Rhythm, just for the benefit of our viewers, can you break down for us the number of pleas that the court was listening to? One, of course, is the fact that the court says that we'll have to, it'll take us some time to set up a bench, and that till then all these matters will be heard. So can you give us some clarity on the number of pleas that the court was hearing?
So, Nupur, there are 3 pleas that the Supreme Court had to hear, but they were not listed today. This is just an urgent mentioning that has been spoken by Kapil Sibal, who appeared for the Uddhav camp. One was the trust vote which happened on Maharashtra on the 3rd of July. The second plea is against the appointment of Chief Minister Eknath Shinde as the Maharashtra Chief Minister by Governor Bhagat Singh Koshyari. And the third is the appointment of the Chief Whip Bharat Gogwale in the Assembly by the newly elected Speaker Rahul Narvekar, and disqualification pleas pending against 16 rebel Shiv Sena MLAs. So a lot of pleas that the Supreme Court had to hear, since they'll have to go into great details about the powers of the Speaker versus the powers of the Governor versus whether the Deputy Speaker's conduct was correct. The Supreme Court said we shall hear this matter later on. They've not given out a date for this as of now.
So, Rhythm, will all of this be bunched up, or are there going to be separate pleas again? We are, of course, waiting for the detailed orders to come out, but what's your understanding of how this will go forward now?
So, Nupur, it's not, the pleas are going to be as a batch because they are similar, will be heard simultaneously and together by the Chief Justice of India's bench, and they will possibly direct another bench to hear this matter. But for today, they refuse to list the matter. They've also told the Solicitor General, tell the Speaker not to take any sudden orders or any mentionings or any continuations. And Piyush, as you continue to stay with us, I also want to tell you, Nupur, that the Supreme Court has today only deferred the pleas, the disqualification proceedings and other proceedings, and said we shall hear them later. So in a sense, we can say, Piyush, will come back to you also on this, that the status quo that the Supreme Court has said has to be maintained, but this will be seen as a setback for the Uddhav camp.
All right, Piyush, if we can come back to you now on this one. Piyush, any reactions that we are getting? I know it's just come out, but any political reactions that you are getting from what's happened in court?
Well, shortly we'll get a voice coming in from Maharashtra, because yes, both the factions were keeping a close watch on Supreme Court's developments, because the Uddhav Thackeray camp was hoping Supreme Court moving ahead and disqualify these MLAs, because they have been claiming, Nupur, that they have committed the biggest sin there in the assembly by going against the law and by making their own faction. In fact, the Shinde camp was also very much hopeful that the Supreme Court would hear to their pleas also. We'll have to wait and watch how both the camps are going to respond to that. As of now, nobody has responded, but yes, they are keeping a close watch on all the developments. We have just heard from Supreme Court, where it has said that in coming few days a bench would be set up, and Chief Justice of India would be hearing to all the pleas. We'll have to wait and watch how the camps are going to respond to that. But Uddhav Thackeray camp once again requested court to disqualify all them and hear their plea. All the pleas would now be merged, and then Supreme Court will be hearing. As of now, the date has not been announced by Supreme Court, but till the time the next hearing takes place, there will be no action taken against all these 16 dribble shifts in MLAs.
Now, Piyush, what's your understanding of how this will go forward in terms of what happens in the government in Maharashtra? Because do remember that Eknath Shinde, the Chief Minister, and Mr. Fadnavis had both said that, the allotment of portfolios will be on hold till, these pleas are decided upon. So how does this then go forward in terms of political, in terms essentially of government activity here?
Well, like you rightly pointed out, that there was a close watch which was being done not only by Shinde camp but also by BJP camp, and they were hoping that Supreme Court is going to hear the matter and also come out with some sort of verdict on this. But now Supreme Court saying that they are going to hear the matter in coming few days after the bench is set up. We can expect that this cabinet reshuffle could be postponed. We were also hearing that senior leaders from the BJP there in the state of Maharashtra could be given the portfolios, and also from Shinde camp around 10 MLAs from Shinde camp were to be allotted the ministerial position there in Maharashtra. But now we can expect announcement coming in from the Maharashtra government of postponing all this, because the matter is in Supreme Court. But yes, the government is now very much hopeful to do this in coming few days. At the same time, a big sign of relief could be seen for Shinde camp. So till the time next hearing takes place, no actions will be taken against all these MLAs. This is what has been made very much clear by Supreme Court.
All right, stay with us, Piyush. Rhythm, if I could come back to you now. Rhythm, this is going to be a long-winded matter now, because the Supreme Court essentially has put on, has said we're first going to constitute a bench and thereafter the proceedings will go forward. In your opinion, how do you see this going forward now?
Well, I do believe, Nupur, that the case is finally going to be heard and decided in the Supreme Court. We've seen several other cases when there have been such matters, whether it's the Karnataka MLAs matter that the Supreme Court had a midnight hearing in, the Goa Assembly matter when we saw similar cases, or even the other election matters that we've seen in the top court. I do believe in political cases such as this, it's the final authoritative stamp of the legal courts of the country that decides everything finally. But I do think that for now, the government that is there has been formed. Whatever challenges that are there will be taken up later, which is going to be seen as a huge relief, because the Supreme Court in its wisdom has said these are matters that we shall be listing later. For now, the Speaker should not go ahead and state anything. Also, like the that the Uddhav camp that was led by Kapil Sibal in the court has said. But what's going to happen is, once these pleas are heard, we shall see authoritative judgments coming in from the Supreme Court on constitutional matters such as the role of the Speaker, the conduct of the Deputy Speaker, the actions of the Deputy Speaker in this manner, and other such things that have been asked and demanded by the Uddhav camp as well as the Shinde camp when they both came to the Supreme Court. We're going to see whether the disqualification of the MLA stands the test of time. All this, however, will be taken up at an indefinite date that has been not given by the Supreme Court today, except the Supreme Court said we shall hear this later on. So for now, there's status quo in the Maharashtra political crisis drama in the top court, where the Supreme Court is not going to give out an urgent hearing to the Uddhav camp.
Now, Rhythm, would this then appear to you as a setback for the Uddhav camp? Because, as far as time goes, perhaps they're losing out because, it will also be a matter of charging the cadres of the party at the ground levels. Rhythm?
Okay, Nupur, I didn't get your question. I'm sorry. I'll just retrace what's happened in the Supreme Court in this hearing because I didn't quite catch the question. Right in the morning today, Senior Advocate Kapil Sibal appeared for Uddhav Thackeray faction and requested that the bench that's led by Chief Justice Ramana to list the matters. So the first thing that they try to do is get the matters listed today.